It starts with a simple question. Why do banks fail us when we need them most? Every decade, the headlines repeat. People lose trust. Savings vanish. Families pay the price. If you stay until the end of this story, you will understand why cryptocurrency was created, why it threatens to replace banks, and how it may reshape the future of money. This video is not hype and it is not fear. It is a calm story about what money really is, how banks hold it, why they lend it, and how that fragile system has cracked again and again. You will learn how Bitcoin was born after the 2008 crash, how Ethereum created digital apps without banks, and how stablecoins and DeFi opened doors once locked to ordinary people. You will hear about families who trusted banks and lost everything. You will hear how one anonymous idea called Bitcoin became digital gold. You will hear about the risks that still haunt crypto today and why they matter to you even if you never buy a single coin. Every chapter is designed to give you clarity, and every chapter will leave you calmer about money than when you started. By the end, you will know the truth. Banks lend out your deposits. The FDIC insures only so much. Millions still live without bank accounts. Nearly half of households already use digital wallets. And crypto, whether loved or hated, is forcing the financial system to evolve. These are not theories. They are facts that shape the choices you make. You will not only understand the structure of banks and crypto, you will feel how money affects safety, identity, and rest. You will hear about the fear of missing out, the storms of volatility, and the scams that trick the desperate. But you will also hear about healing, rituals, and the soft relief of finally feeling safe with money. This is why staying through the entire journey matters. The first part of this story will guide you into the fog of confusion. We will start with the feeling of lying awake, asking what money even means. We will then meet the oak tree of banking, steady but imperfect. Then the river of money that flows through economies, and soon the seed of Bitcoin planted after a crisis. Each step will bring you closer to understanding how crypto and banking tell the same story from different sides. In the middle parts, you will learn how the wake-up happens. The first paycheck, the first debt, the moment banks felt unfair, the moment crypto looked like freedom. These are not abstract ideas. They are the turning points people live through. They are the small cracks that force us to rethink what money really offers us. The last parts will show the redesign, healing money wounds, building safe habits, understanding privacy and security, and finding peace with a system that is bigger than us, but still something we can shape. You will see how banks will not end overnight, but will change because of crypto. You will see how crypto will not be perfect, but will keep pushing for choice and transparency. This story ends with you having the tools to think gently and wisely about both. Why should you stay until the end? Because every chapter builds on the last. If you leave early, you miss the larger picture. If you stay, you walk away with a full map of money today. You will know why banks have power. You will know why crypto challenges them. And you will know how both can affect your sleep, your safety, and your future. This video is designed for peace. It is long, so you can rest with it. It repeats gently, so you do not need to catch every detail. Even if you fall asleep, you will wake with more clarity. And if you stay until the very end, you will carry with you the knowledge that money is not something to fear, but something you can understand step by step. Every part of this story has value. The failures of banks, the birth of crypto, the risks and scams, the hope of stablecoins, the freedom of DeFi, the lessons of psychology, the healing rituals that close the circle. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is filler. It all matters. As you listen, you will start to connect your own story. Maybe you remember the first time your card was declined. Maybe you remember a parent arguing about bills. Maybe you remember hearing about Bitcoin for the first time and thinking it was strange. All of these memories link back to the same question. Where is my money safe? And that question is why this story matters. Banks tell you safety is with them. Crypto tells you safety is with yourself. The truth is softer and more complex. It is both. It is neither. It is a balance. By the end, you will see how to rest in that balance without fear. So settle in, let your body rest. Let your mind relax. You do not need to take notes. You do not need to remember every number. You only need to follow the story, because the story itself will hold you. It will carry you through confusion into clarity. It will take you through fear into calm. And as we start with chapter 1, you will step into the fog. You will hear the gentle questions of a dreamer lying awake, wondering what money really is and why it feels so heavy. Their confusion will be yours. Their search for calm will guide you, and their first step will lead us forward together. Are you ready to walk into the quiet curiosity of money's maze? The room is dark. The only light comes from a phone screen. The numbers on the banking app feel both familiar and strange. Balance lower than expected. Fees listed in small text, hard to understand, and yet this is where so many nights begin. A quiet question forms in the back of the mind. What is money really? Is it the paper in a wallet? Is it the digits in this app? Is it something safe or something fragile? The thought lingers, like a whisper you cannot silence. Sleep feels far away because the truth feels unclear. You think back to childhood. Maybe you remember watching your parents. Bills stacked on the kitchen table, voices hushed, sometimes tense. You did not know the words, but you knew the feeling. Money was heavy, even when invisible. It carried silence, stress, and mystery. Back then, you thought money was simple. You gave coins for candy and got change back. You saw dollars folded into envelopes for rent. The meaning seemed straightforward, like trading toys on the playground. But over time, the simplicity faded. As you grew older, the rules grew foggier. Banks entered the picture. Direct deposit, fees, overdrafts. The oak tree of safety you expected felt full of cracks. You started to wonder how safe your money truly was, and yet no one explained it in words that calmed you. Now, as an adult, the same questions return at night. Why does the system feel both necessary and untrustworthy? Why do banks seem powerful while leaving people anxious? Why does money feel like a maze with no clear exit? The weight of not knowing presses softly on the chest. Curiosity rises even through the confusion. You want to understand what really happens behind the screen. You want to know if money in the bank is safe. You want to know why people talk about crypto as an alternative. You want to know if peace is possible. The truth is that confusion is natural. Most people were never taught how banks function. Few schools explain fractional reserves or deposit insurance. Few parents passed down calm lessons about money. Silence was the curriculum, and silence left scars. So tonight, instead of pushing the questions away, you invite them in. You let yourself rest in curiosity instead of fear. You do not need every answer yet. You only need the space to wonder gently. That itself is a kind of comfort. You think again about the phone in your hand. That balance number is a symbol, not the money itself. The dollars are elsewhere, moving through systems you cannot see. Other people borrow them. Banks invest them. Interest flows. Your balance stays steady, but the money is never still. This is where the first crack of clarity appears. Banks do not simply hold your money. They move it, lend it, and use it to fuel growth. They promise to give it back on demand within limits. That promise depends on trust, not storage. This realization softens the fog. Money in the bank is not a locked box. It is a river moving constantly beneath the surface. You cannot always see the current, but it flows. And in that flow, risk and trust live side by side. Curiosity pushes you further. If banks are rivers, then what is crypto? People say it is money without banks. They say it is safer, freer, truer. Is that comfort or another illusion? At this stage, you do not need to decide. You only need to hold the questions gently. The night is long, and the story is longer. Answers will come step by step. For now, curiosity is enough. Think of others who lie awake like you, the graduate staring at student loans, the single parent wondering about rent, the worker scrolling through Bitcoin prices at midnight, each one asking the same quiet questions. This collective curiosity connects you. It shows you are not broken for asking. It shows the system itself is unclear for many. It shows that curiosity is the first bridge to calm. That bridge is the one we will cross together. You close your eyes for a moment. You picture money as light instead of numbers. Small lamps glowing in houses across the city, each lamp connected by hidden wires underground. The wires are banks carrying light between people. The picture feels calming, but also incomplete. Some lamps glow bright, others flicker weakly. Some houses are not connected at all, and a few stand in darkness, locked out of the system. That too is part of the truth of banks. This vision lingers as you breathe slowly. It feels gentler than staring at the app. It reminds you that confusion is shared. It reminds you that curiosity is safe. It reminds you that questions are the first step toward peace. The fog of money is thick. It covers history, families, and futures. But every fog has an entry point, and yours begins here, in quiet curiosity. What is money, and why does it feel so heavy? Soon you will step closer to the oak tree of banking. You will see what banks actually do with deposits. You will see how they promise safety and how that safety works. You will see the roots and the cracks together. That is where the story moves next. So rest for a moment in your curiosity. Hold the questions softly, like stones in your hand. Know that every chapter will give you more clarity. Know that the fog will slowly lift, and know that you are safe enough to keep listening. Because just as curiosity opens the door, the next chapter opens the forest. And waiting there is the old oak tree, strong yet imperfect, holding the acorns of everyone's savings. The fog of questions still lingers in the air. You are resting in your bed, still holding on to the quiet curiosity we began with. The thought of money feels less sharp now. You are no longer staring at the banking app in frustration. Instead, you are stepping into a story. And in this story, the first shape you see in the distance is not a screen at all. It is an oak tree. The tree stands tall, with roots running deep into the soil. Its branches stretch wide, offering shade and shelter. In this calm image, the oak becomes a symbol of what banks try to be. They are meant to be strong, steady, and safe. They are meant to protect what people place within them. The oak promises to stand even in storms. And so for generations, people have walked toward this tree with their acorns, their dollars, and tucked them carefully inside its trunk. The oak does not simply keep the acorns hidden away. It does something more. People are told that if they leave their acorns here, the tree will keep them safe and may even give them back more later. This is what we know as interest. A small reward for trusting the tree. At the same time, the oak lends some of those acorns to others who need them. Someone who wants to plant a new orchard. Someone who wants to build a home. Someone who cannot wait years to gather enough on their own. The oak tree shares what it holds so the forest can grow. This is the basic role of a bank. It is a place where money is stored, but not locked away in silence. The money moves. Deposits from one person become loans for another. Savings become seeds for businesses and families. And yet for the depositor, the balance seems unchanged. You still see your full amount in your account, even while most of it is already moving through the roots of the oak. This is the system known as fractional reserve banking. The bank keeps only a part in reserve, ready for withdrawals, and uses the rest to fuel the economy. For most people, this system works quietly in the background. You do not think about where your money goes after you deposit it. You only see the balance when you open the app or when you visit an ATM. The illusion is that the money is still sitting there, waiting untouched. But the truth is softer and more complex. Your deposits are part of a larger flow. The oak tree is never still. There is a comfort in this system when it works well. Banks make it possible to buy homes, to go to school, to start businesses. Loans are the lifeblood of growth, and without them, economies would struggle to expand. The oak tree offers strength not only to those who store their savings, but also to those who borrow to build something new. In this way, the whole forest depends on the balance between depositors and borrowers, between saving and lending. Yet with comfort comes risk. If too many people rush to withdraw their acorns at once, the oak does not have enough stored in the hollow trunk to meet their demand. The branches bend under the weight. This is what has led to bank runs throughout history, moments when trust cracked and fear spread. The oak looked solid until too many hands reached for their acorns at the same time. The image of safety blurred into fragility. To ease this fear, another layer of protection was created. In the United States, bank deposits are insured. Up to $250,000 per account are covered by the government. This means that even if a bank fails, depositors are promised they will not lose their savings, at least within that limit. This protection acts like a fence around the oak tree, keeping the people calm even when storms pass overhead. Since this insurance was created, no insured depositor has lost their money. That fact alone helps restore trust. Still, not everyone feels safe with banks. Millions of households in the United States live without a bank account at all. They may have been charged too many fees, or they may have struggled with minimum balance requirements. Some have lost trust entirely, choosing to keep their savings in cash at home. For these people, the oak tree does not feel like protection. It feels like a gate that shuts them out. And so they live on the edges of the forest, without the safety net that others take for granted. As you rest with these thoughts, the oak tree becomes a layered image. On the surface, it is strong and steady. Beneath the surface, its roots are always in motion, borrowing and lending, growing and stretching. For some, it offers stability. For others, it feels distant. The truth, as always, holds both comfort and cracks. You think again of the acorns tucked into the trunk. Each one belongs to someone. Each one carries the hope of safety and growth. Yet once inside the oak, the acorns are transformed. They become part of a living system, moving unseen through the roots. This movement is what keeps the forest alive. But it also creates the chance for imbalance when storms arrive. The more you sit with this image, the more it calms you. Because even though banks are not perfect, you begin to see how they work. The confusion softens into clarity. The oak tree is not magic. It is a system with rules, protections, and limits. Knowing this makes the image less frightening. You no longer picture your money vanishing into mystery. You see it as part of the river that nourishes others while still being promised back to you. And yet, questions remain. If banks are so important, why do they sometimes fail? If deposits are insured, why do people still fear them? If the oak tree is steady, why does the thought of losing trust with it still haunt so many nights? These questions press gently on your thoughts, reminding you that the story is still unfolding. As the night deepens, the oak tree stands firm in your mind. You understand more than before, but you also feel the pull to understand what lies beyond it. The branches sway in the wind, and you notice the river that flows nearby. This river carries leaves and water downstream, linking the oak tree to everything else in the forest. The river is money itself, moving through the economy, shaping lives and choices. You begin to sense that the next step in this journey will follow that current. To understand the oak fully, you must watch the river it drinks from and feeds into. You must see how money flows, how it cycles, and how it creates both growth and scarcity. For now, you rest under the oak tree. You let its branches shield you. You feel safer knowing how it works, even with its limits. But as your eyes grow heavy, curiosity returns again. What is the river of money, and how does it move through every part of life? That question waits quietly in the distance, and it will lead us to the next chapter. You are still resting beneath the oak tree, its branches heavy with acorns, and its roots stretching deep into the soil. The tree feels sturdy, yet you sense that it is not standing alone. Around its roots, you hear something faint, like a steady trickle. When you turn your attention, you notice a stream running nearby. The oak tree is connected to this stream. It drinks from it and feeds into it. And this stream is no ordinary water. It is the flow of money itself. The river of money is everywhere. It begins as paychecks moving into accounts, then it travels as spending in grocery stores, or as rents sent to a landlord, or as loans handed to families starting something new. Every drop of the river tells a story. Some drops move quickly, changing hands many times in a single day. Others rest in a savings account for months or years before they flow again. But none of the drops are truly still. They are always part of the movement. You watch as one person earns $100. They deposit it into the bank. The oak tree shows them the balance, as if all $100 remain untouched. But beneath the surface, only a fraction stays in reserve. 90 of those dollars are lent out to another person who needs to buy equipment for their work. That person spends it at a local store, where the money flows again into wages for staff. The original 100 has now touched many lives. Each touch adds new stories to the river. This is what fractional reserve banking allows. The same deposit flows through the economy many times, multiplying its effect. It is as if one branch of the river splits into many small streams, each watering different parts of the land. Without this constant flow, the forest would dry, economies would stall, businesses would not grow, families would not find homes. The river keeps life moving. And yet, even as it flows outward, the original balance is still promised to the depositor. That promise is what holds trust in place. The Federal Reserve, the central caretaker of the river, plays a role in shaping its speed. It adjusts interest rates like lifting or lowering gates along the stream. When rates are low, borrowing becomes easier. More people take loans, and the river rushes faster, carrying more leaves and more stories downstream. When rates rise, borrowing slows. The river calms, moving with more caution. In this way, the flow of money is never random. It is guided, though never fully controlled by the choices of people and institutions. You sit quietly and notice how the river touches every part of life. The food on your table, the roof above your head, the school loans repaid month after month, all of it connected to this constant cycle of earning, lending, and spending. Even when you think your money is at rest in the oak tree, it is still flowing somewhere else. Your balance is both present and moving at the same time. This paradox is what makes the system feel confusing, yet it is also what makes it work. There is beauty in the way the river connects strangers. The dollars you deposit may help someone across town open their bakery. Their payments to suppliers may fund wages for workers in another city. Those workers spend their earnings at shops near their homes, and part of it returns to the bank again. Your small piece of the river ripples outward until it touches places you will never see. In this way, money is not only numbers, it is the invisible thread weaving communities together. Yet the river has its dangers. If too much money floods into the system, prices rise too quickly, and the value of each dollar feels weaker. This is inflation, when the river overflows its banks and the forest struggles to keep balance. On the other hand, if the river dries up, with too little lending or too much fear, growth slows and people suffer. This is recession, when the flow becomes shallow and many parts of the land are left thirsty. Both extremes remind us that the river must keep a steady current, not too fast and not too slow. You remember moments from history when the river nearly broke its course. In times of panic, people rushed to withdraw all their money at once. The oak tree could not keep pace. The river cracked and chaos followed. These were the bank runs of the past, times when the trust that held the system together dissolved. And yet, each crisis also led to new protections, like the insurance fence that reassures depositors today. These lessons are part of the river's story as much as the flow itself. Even now, not everyone trusts the river. Some stand at its banks, choosing never to step in. Millions live without accounts, avoiding the oak and its waters altogether. They live instead with cash in pockets or small loans from friends. For them, the river is not a source of peace. It is a current they feel excluded from, or one they fear might sweep them away. Their absence from the flow is a quiet reminder that not all trust has been restored. Still, the river carries on, day and night, silently shaping lives. When you look at it with gentle eyes, the confusion starts to soften. Money is no longer only digits on a screen. It is the movement of energy through a shared system. It is wages becoming rent, savings becoming loans, and trust becoming growth. The river flows because people believe in it, and the belief itself keeps the cycle alive. As you breathe slower, the sound of the river becomes calming. It is steady, like a lullaby in the background. Even when you do not pay attention, it moves on, carrying your dollars along with the dollars of millions of others. There is safety in knowing that you are not alone in this flow. Your part may be small, but it matters. Without every drop, the river could not continue. The night deepens, and you let the rhythm of the current settle your thoughts. You have seen how the oak tree lends and how the river carries. You understand now that money is not stillness, it is motion. The more you understand, the lighter the fear becomes. Instead of seeing money as a maze, you see it as a current that can be observed, learned from, and respected. And yet, a new thought arises. If the river is guided by banks and by the Federal Reserve, what happens when people begin to ask if another kind of river is possible? A river not controlled by gates and branches. A river that flows on its own, without a central keeper. That question stirs gently inside you. It is the seed of what comes next, because beyond the oak tree and beyond the river, something new began to grow. It started as a small seed planted after a storm, and it has now grown into an idea strong enough to challenge the old ways. This seed is cryptocurrency, and its story begins where the failures of banks left deep scars. And that is where we will go next, into the story of new seeds of change and the birth of Bitcoin. The river of money continues to flow in your mind. You can still hear it moving through the forest, carrying wages, savings, and loans from one place to another. For a moment, it feels steady, even calming, but then a memory rises. You remember times when the river overflowed, when banks collapsed, and when trust dissolved. The year was 2008. Around the world, headlines filled with panic. Large banks that once seemed too strong to fail crumbled in a matter of weeks. People lost jobs, homes, and savings. The river of money that once felt steady became a flood of fear. For many, it felt like the oak tree of banking had cracked at its very core. The trust that held the entire system together no longer felt unshakable. People who had once believed in the safety of banks started to wonder if there could ever be a better way. From that storm, a small seed of change was planted. It came not from a government or a corporation, but from an anonymous figure hidden behind the name Satoshi Nakamoto. In October of 2008, this figure shared a white paper online. The document had a simple title: Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Behind the plain words was a radical idea. What if money did not need a bank? What if people could send value directly to one another, without relying on an institution to keep records or approve transactions? The seed was small, almost invisible. At first, only a few people noticed, but inside, it was something powerful. It carried the promise of a system built on code and mathematics, rather than trust in fallible humans. It was a vision of money as a shared record held by everyone, where each transaction was written permanently into a digital ledger called a blockchain. This ledger could not be erased or changed, making it as solid as carved stone, yet accessible to anyone with a computer. This was the birth of Bitcoin. It began quietly, with a single block of code mined on January 3, 2009. That first block carried a hidden message. A headline from a newspaper on the same day. It read, "Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks." The message was not an accident. It was a reminder of why this new system was created. Bitcoin was born as a response to the failures of banks, a protest against the endless cycle of bailouts and collapses, and a dream of money that could exist without the oak tree and its fragile roots. The idea was simple, yet daring. If banks worked as intermediaries, why not remove them? If banks promised safety but sometimes failed, why not design a system where safety came from the code itself? Each Bitcoin transaction would be recorded publicly, confirmed by computers around the world working together, so no one could cheat or counterfeit. The system would not need trust in people. It would rely on math, open for anyone to see. At first, few people believed it mattered. The seed sat in the soil, small and unassuming. Early users mined coins on personal computers, exchanging them for little more than curiosity. But slowly, the seed began to sprout. Each new transaction added to the blockchain was like a tiny leaf reaching toward the sun. Each person who believed in the idea watered it with their energy and trust. Slowly, the sapling grew. The appeal was clear to those who first gathered around it. Bitcoin was money outside of government control. No central bank could print more of it at will. No institution could freeze an account or reverse a transaction. Ownership belonged to whoever held the private keys, strings of code that acted like secret keys to a digital wallet. For some, this was a relief. For others, it was a revolution. It gave individuals a level of control that banks had never offered. Still, the seed grew in rocky soil. Many critics called it dangerous or unrealistic. They warned that it was too volatile, too untested, too fragile, and they were not wrong. In its early years, Bitcoin's price swung wildly. A coin could be worth a few cents one day and a few dollars the next. It could lose half its value in a week. Holding it was like holding a young sapling in a storm, never sure if it would survive the night. Yet, against the odds, it continued to grow. Bitcoin also carried a story. It was not only technology, it was philosophy. It spoke to those who had lost faith in institutions, those who had watched banks fail again and again. It offered a dream of money that could not be manipulated or inflated away, a dream of sovereignty and independence. For a generation raised in the shadow of the 2008 crash, this dream felt powerful. It felt like a way to plant something new in soil where old roots had rotted. The growth of Bitcoin also revealed new questions. If money could exist without banks, what else could change? Could people build financial systems where loans, contracts, and savings were all managed by code instead of institutions? Could this seed grow into a forest of its own? These questions began to stir curiosity in developers, thinkers, and dreamers. Bitcoin was only the beginning, but its beginning mattered because it showed what was possible. As you rest with this story, you can feel both the promise and the weight. Bitcoin was not perfect. It was volatile, confusing, and sometimes misused. But its birth was not an accident, and once planted, it could not be ignored. You imagine the seed now, small but resilient, sending its first shoots upward. Around it, the old oak tree towers, strong but weathered by storms. The river flows, sometimes steady, sometimes overflowing. And between them, the seed grows, offering a new kind of hope. A hope that maybe money could belong to people directly, without needing to pass through routes that had failed before. Bitcoin was one of those creations, a symbol of both frustration and possibility. A reminder that even in the darkest times, new seeds can be planted. Seeds that change how we think, how we act, and how we trust. It must prove its worth, not only as an idea, but as a form of money that people can hold, spend, and believe in. That is where the next chapter of our story begins. A mountain of value built from code, glowing in the night sky, attracting people from every corner of the world. And it is to that mountain that we now turn to hear the tale of Bitcoin's rise, its sparkle, and its storms. The seed of Bitcoin has now broken through the soil. It has grown from an idea into a living thing, fragile yet determined. In the early years, it was small, known by only a few curious minds who saw potential in its strange design. But as time passed, the sapling grew taller. People began to see that what had started as an experiment could one day stand beside the oak tree of banking. They gave it a new name, one that captured both its mystery and its promise. They called it digital gold. Gold has always held a special place in human history. For centuries, it was the foundation of wealth and stability. Kings, merchants, and families treasured it as a store of value that did not fade with time. Unlike paper currency, gold was not easily printed or inflated. It was scarce, durable, and recognized across cultures. When people compared Bitcoin to gold, they were not only making a technical statement, they were saying that Bitcoin, too, could be a store of value, something that could outlast fear and uncertainty. This comparison gave Bitcoin new power. People who once dismissed it as a toy began to pay attention. They noticed that it was scarce, with a fixed supply that would never exceed 21 million coins. They noticed that it could not be counterfeited or debased by governments printing more. They noticed that it could be transferred across borders in minutes without permission, while gold remained heavy and difficult to move. Slowly, the idea of Bitcoin as digital gold began to take root. For those who believed, holding Bitcoin was more than an investment. It was a statement. It meant trusting in code over institutions. It meant valuing scarcity and transparency over politics and manipulation. It meant believing that the lessons of the 2008 crisis could lead to something new, something resilient. Each coin mind felt like a piece of this future, glowing softly in the dark, ready to light a path forward. Mining was how Bitcoin grew. Unlike banks that issued loans or governments that printed currency, Bitcoin created new coins through the work of computers solving puzzles. Each solved puzzle added a block to the blockchain, confirming transactions and securing the network. The miner who solved it was rewarded with new coins. This process, though invisible to the average user, was the heartbeat of Bitcoin. It kept the ledger honest, and it rewarded those who maintained it. Mining also revealed Bitcoin's hidden cost. The energy required to solve these puzzles was immense. Computers worked day and night, consuming electricity to keep the network secure. Some saw this as waste, while others saw it as the necessary price of independence. Either way, it became clear that digital gold did not come without effort. Just as physical gold had to be mined from the earth, digital gold had to be mined from mathematics. Both required labor, both demanded sacrifice, and both carried value because of their rarity. As the years passed, Bitcoin's price began to rise. At first, it was worth only a few cents. Then, it crossed $1. Soon it was 10, then 100, then 1,000. Each milestone captured headlines, drawing new believers and skeptics alike. For those who held their coins through the turbulence, the journey felt surreal. Something that had once been traded for pizza was now valued like a treasure chest. The digital sapling had grown into a mountain that glowed with promise. But with the rise came storms. Bitcoin's price was never steady. It soared to new heights, only to crash again in sudden drops. One year it would climb tenfold. The next it would lose half its value in weeks. These swings created fear, doubt, and endless debate. Was Bitcoin truly gold, or was it a bubble waiting to burst? Could something so volatile ever serve as stable money? These questions echoed across dinner tables, news outlets, and trading forums. Yet despite the storms, the mountain remained. Each crash tested its strength, and each recovery made it stronger. The volatility also created stories of human extremes. Some bought coins early and watched their modest investments grow into fortunes. Others bought at peaks, only to see their wealth vanish in crashes. Each story reflected both hope and heartbreak. And through it all, Bitcoin kept moving, block by block, transaction by transaction, indifferent to the emotions swirling around it. The code did not care about greed or fear. It continued its steady rhythm, producing new coins at a predictable pace until its limit would one day be reached. For many, this predictability was its greatest strength. Unlike paper money, which governments could expand at will, Bitcoin's supply was hard-coded. Every 4 years, the reward for mining was cut in half, making new coins even scarcer. This event, called the halving, became a ritual for the community. Each halving reminded people that Bitcoin was not infinite, that scarcity was real, and that time itself would shape its value. The halving was like a heartbeat, slowing but steady, marking the passage of Bitcoin's growth. As adoption grew, Bitcoin began to be accepted in small corners of the real world. Some online shops and merchants agreed to take it as payment. A handful of cafes and restaurants displayed signs welcoming it. In some countries, where local currencies suffered from hyperinflation, Bitcoin became a lifeline. People used it to protect their savings from collapse, turning to digital gold when their own money turned to dust. These small examples proved that Bitcoin was not only theory, it was a tool, fragile but functional, giving people choice where none had existed before. Yet, with every step forward, new challenges appeared. Governments debated how to regulate it. Banks worried about being replaced. Scams and hacks targeted the inexperienced, the same qualities that made Bitcoin powerful: its independence. Its anonymity, its global reach also, made it vulnerable to misuse. Critics pointed to these flaws as proof that Bitcoin could never succeed. Supporters saw them as growing pains, challenges to be solved as the system matured. Both sides agreed on one thing: Bitcoin could not be ignored. The mountain of digital gold continued to rise. Its glow drew attention from investors, corporations, and even governments. Large funds began to buy and hold it. Payment companies integrated it into their platforms. Once dismissed as a toy, it was now treated as an asset class, studied in boardrooms and tracked in financial reports. What began as a protest had grown into a force that even the largest institutions had to acknowledge. The seed had not only sprouted, it had reshaped the landscape around it. Still, for all its growth, Bitcoin remained imperfect. Its transactions were sometimes slow. Its fees could rise unpredictably. Its volatility scared away those seeking stability, and its energy demands sparked debates about sustainability. These flaws reminded everyone that digital gold was not flawless. It was precious, but it was also fragile, like a jewel that needed constant care. Believing in Bitcoin meant accepting both its brilliance and its blemishes. You rest with this knowledge, feeling both awe and caution. Bitcoin is no longer only a seed of change. It is a mountain of value, glowing in the distance, admired and feared at the same time. It has shown that money can exist without banks, that trust can be written in code. But it has also revealed the challenges of creating something entirely new. The story is far from finished. The mountain still grows, still shifts, still invites questions. And those questions are not only about Bitcoin itself, they are about what else might be possible. If Bitcoin is digital gold, strong but limited, could there be another coin designed for something more? Could there be a system not only for storing value, but for building new applications, contracts, and services directly on a blockchain? Could the seed of Bitcoin inspire a whole new garden of ideas? That question lingers as you breathe slowly, letting the glow of the mountain fade into the background. For beyond Bitcoin lies another spark, a lantern of creativity that expanded the vision of what money could be. This lantern carried the name Ethereum, and its light revealed a world of apps, contracts, and possibilities far beyond gold. And it is toward that spark that we now turn to hear the story of imagination, programs, and the rise of a second great force in the world of digital money. The mountain of digital gold still glows in your memory. Bitcoin has shown you that money can exist without banks, that trust can be written in code, and that scarcity itself can carry value. Yet, as strong as the mountain feels, you sense its limits. Bitcoin is precious, but it is also narrow. It shines as a store of value like gold. But what if money could do more? What if the same technology could not only hold wealth, but also build systems, create tools, and design agreements that run on their own? This question gave birth to a spark of creativity. The spark began with a young programmer who looked at Bitcoin and saw its beauty, but also its boundaries. He asked himself whether blockchain could be more than digital gold. Could it be a platform for apps, contracts, and entire systems of trust? He believed the answer was yes, and from that belief, Ethereum was born. Ethereum arrived in 2015 as a new kind of blockchain. While Bitcoin's purpose was simple and singular, Ethereum carried a lantern that could light many paths. It was designed to host smart contracts, small pieces of code that could run automatically once certain conditions were met. Instead of relying on lawyers, middlemen, or banks, these contracts executed themselves. A promise written in Ethereum's language was not only a statement, it was an action that carried itself out without question. This was a breakthrough. For the first time, money and agreements could exist together in one digital space. People could lend, borrow, or trade with rules enforced by code rather than human oversight. They could build decentralized applications, often called dApps, that lived on the blockchain like tiny machines running endlessly without a central operator. Ethereum was not only a coin, it was a computer that belonged to everyone and no one. At first, the spark glowed quietly. Developers experimented with basic applications, testing the limits of what smart contracts could do. A few simple games appeared. Some people created tokens that represented new ideas or projects. The ecosystem was small, fragile, and sometimes clumsy. But within it, there was a sense of wonder. If Bitcoin had shown the world a mountain of gold, Ethereum was showing the world an orchard of endless seeds. Each seed carried the potential to grow into a new tree. As the orchard expanded, people began to imagine what financial systems could look like without banks. Lending could be peer-to-peer, written into code that executed automatically. Markets could run without brokers, with buyers and sellers trading directly through decentralized exchanges. Crowdfunding could happen without platforms, with smart contracts releasing funds only when goals were met. Every corner of traditional finance had a potential mirror inside Ethereum's orchard. The idea of decentralized finance, or DeFi, grew from this orchard. It was the dream of creating an open financial system where anyone with an internet connection could participate. No gatekeepers, no bankers, no middle layers. Only code, contracts, and trust written into the blockchain. For some, this was liberation. For others, it was a risky experiment. But for all, it was proof that Ethereum's spark carried something powerful. Ethereum was powered by its own currency, Ether. Unlike Bitcoin, Ether was not only a store of value, it was also fuel. Every contract executed, every app running, every transaction processed required a fee paid in Ether. This fee, often called gas, kept the network moving. It was like the oxygen feeding the fire of creativity, ensuring that each spark could glow and expand. As adoption grew, the price of Ether also rose. Like Bitcoin, it experienced cycles of excitement and fear, growth and decline. Yet beyond its price, its purpose mattered more. People saw Ether not only as an investment, but as the lifeblood of a creative platform. Owning it was like holding the key to a global computer that never shut down. Of course, Ethereum was not free of challenges. The very openness that made it beautiful also made it fragile. Hackers targeted weak contracts, exploiting flaws in code to drain funds. Some early projects collapsed overnight, leaving investors with losses. Fees sometimes rose too high, making small transactions expensive. Scalability became an issue as more people joined, slowing the network and raising questions about its limits. For critics, these problems were signs of weakness. For supporters, they were steps in the process of growth. Still, the spark endured. Each challenge led to new solutions. New upgrades, new layers built to strengthen the system. The community grew larger, more resilient, and more determined. Developers continued to create, and users continued to explore. The orchard grew more trees, some tall and fruitful, others falling early, but all part of the experiment. Ethereum also carried symbolism. If Bitcoin was the protest against banks, Ethereum was the dream of rebuilding finance in new ways. It represented imagination, collaboration, and possibility. It was less about hoarding wealth and more about creating systems that could serve everyone. In this way, Ethereum expanded the conversation. Money was not only about storage, it was about action, connection, and creation. For people listening to its story, Ethereum became a symbol of hope. It suggested that finance did not need to remain in the hands of a few powerful institutions. It could be rewritten, redesigned, and opened to all. At the same time, it reminded people of responsibility. Without gatekeepers, individuals had to be cautious, thoughtful, and wise. The freedom of Ethereum came with the weight of self-control. As you rest with these thoughts, you can feel how Ethereum differs from Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin glows like a mountain of digital gold, Ethereum shines like a lantern in a clearing. It illuminates possibilities. It reveals paths that were hidden. It invites people not only to hold value, but to build with it. This is the spark of creativity at work, gentle but transformative. You breathe deeply and let this spark settle into your imagination. You see the orchard expanding, each tree growing with new ideas. You hear the hum of smart contracts running in the background, invisible but constant. You feel the presence of millions of people experimenting, creating, and dreaming together. And in this vision, you see the future of finance unfolding softly before your eyes. Yet, even with all its creativity, Ethereum still faces the same question that haunts all of crypto. How do you balance possibility with stability? How do you create systems that are not only innovative, but also safe and steady? This question has led to another branch of the story, one that focuses not on growth, but on calm. Because as much as people love the spark of creativity, they also crave stability. They want something steady, something that does not swing wildly in value, something they can trust to remain the same from one day to the next. Out of that craving, a new kind of coin was created. A coin designed to remain anchored no matter how stormy the market became. And so, as the lantern of Ethereum continues to shine, we turn our eyes to the still waters of a lake, a place of reflection and calm, where stablecoins were born to provide balance in a restless world. The lantern of Ethereum still glows in your thoughts. You remember its orchard of ideas, its contracts that execute themselves, and its vision of a financial world built on code. Yet, as you picture that orchard, you notice the air moving restlessly. The branches sway more than you like. The wind of volatility keeps shaking the trees. What grows here is creative, but not steady. You begin to sense the need for calm waters, a place where value can rest without constant motion. This is where the image of a lake appears. The lake is still, its surface smooth and reflective. No matter how the wind rushes through the forest, the lake seems anchored. Stablecoins are this lake in the world of cryptocurrency. They were designed to stay close to one value, most often the United States dollar. Instead of rushing up and down in wild waves like Bitcoin or Ether, stablecoins try to remain steady. One coin for $1, simple and predictable. The appeal of this steadiness is easy to feel. Imagine you receive payment in Bitcoin. Today it is worth $100. Tomorrow it could be worth $80. The next day, $110. The constant changes create stress, especially for those who want to use digital money for daily needs. A shop owner cannot price bread if the coin used to pay swings every hour. A worker cannot rest if wages shrink overnight. Stablecoins bring relief to this anxiety. They promise that one coin today will still be worth one coin tomorrow. The most common forms of stablecoins are backed by real assets. Companies issue them by holding reserves of dollars or cash-like investments. For every stablecoin created, there is a dollar or similar value stored as support. This backing gives people confidence that they can redeem the coin if needed. Tether and USD Coin are two examples that became widely used. Both claim to hold assets equal to the amount of coins they release. When managed properly, this means the stablecoin should always be close to $1 in value. But stablecoins are not all the same. Some are backed by reserves in banks. Others use more complex systems, relying on algorithms to adjust supply and demand. These algorithmic stablecoins attempt to stay near their peg by using smart contracts to expand or shrink the number of coins. In calm times, they seem elegant. In storms, they can collapse. The fall of Terrast in 2022 showed this danger clearly. Billions in value disappeared when the system failed to hold its balance. For many, it was a painful reminder that not all lakes are as anchored as they appear. Still, The idea of stablecoins continues to grow because the need for stability is so deep. In the world of decentralized finance, stablecoins act as the resting point. Traders move in and out of them during market swings. Lenders and borrowers use them as the base for contracts. Families in countries with unstable local currencies often prefer them over their own money. To hold a stablecoin is to hold still water in a world of storms. It may not rise in value like Bitcoin, but it also does not collapse as easily in a single night. Stablecoins also play a role in bridging the old and new systems. They are digital, but they are tied to familiar dollars. For someone hesitant to step fully into crypto, stablecoins feel less frightening. They can transfer value quickly across borders without paying high fees, yet they do not have to face the swings of other coins. They combine the speed of blockchain with the steadiness of traditional money. In this way, they are like a dock connecting the forest to the wider world. The growth of stablecoins has been rapid. They have become some of the most used coins in the entire ecosystem. Their daily transaction volumes often rival those of Bitcoin. This shows how much people crave balance. Even in a world built on creativity and independence, the human need for predictability remains strong. We do not only want possibility, we also want calm. Stablecoins provide that calm, even if imperfectly. But the story of stablecoins is not without questions. Are the reserves always as safe as promised? Are the audits transparent enough? Do people understand the risks of placing trust in private companies to maintain these pegs? These questions matter because the safety of the lake depends on what lies beneath its surface. If the reserves are solid, the water remains calm. If the reserves are weak, the illusion of stillness can shatter quickly. For those who use stablecoins wisely, they are a valuable tool. They give breathing room in volatile markets. They provide a way to move funds across countries without losing value. They allow people to hold money digitally without constant fear of sudden loss. Yet they are not perfect. They require oversight, responsibility, and honesty from those who manage them. Like every part of the crypto world, they are built on trust, even when trust looks different than in traditional banks. As you sit by the anchored lake in your thoughts, you feel its peace. The still surface mirrors the sky above. It is calming to look at. You know, the water may not always stay this perfect, but for now, it offers rest. You realize how important it is for any financial system, old or new, to provide this sense of steadiness. Without it, people cannot plan, cannot breathe, cannot dream. Stability is not a luxury. It is the ground on which lives are built. You also notice how the lake connects back to the oak tree and the river. Traditional banks provide stability with insurance and reserves. The river flows with cycles of lending and borrowing. Now, stablecoins add another form of steadiness, one that belongs in the digital forest. Each plays a role in creating balance, though none are flawless. Together, they remind you that money is not only about growth, but also about rest. The lake whispers softly of the next step. If stability is possible, then so is openness. If stablecoins anchor value, then decentralized finance expands it. The next path leads from the calm waters to a wide meadow, where people exchange directly without banks, where rules are written in code, and where the promise of freedom becomes visible. And so, as you leave the anchored lake behind, you follow the gentle trail into the open meadow of DeFi, where new experiments wait to be explored. You leave the anchored lake behind, its surface calm and steady. The reflection of the sky fades as you walk onward, and the trail opens to a wide meadow. The grass bends softly in the breeze. The space feels open, without walls, without gates, without a single path you must follow. This is the feeling of decentralized finance, often called DeFi. It is not one place, but a field where many people gather, exchange, and create freely. In the meadow, no one stands at the center giving orders. There is no banker, no teller, no clerk behind a counter. Instead, people form circles, passing baskets among themselves. Each basket holds tokens, contracts, or agreements. The rules for these baskets are written in code. Once agreed, the code carries them out automatically. There is no need to argue or wait for approval. The basket moves on its own. This is the heart of DeFi, financial services run by smart contracts instead of people in offices. The meadow feels peaceful, but it is also alive with movement. You notice one circle where people lend tokens into a contract. Another person borrows from it by placing collateral inside. The contract keeps everything fair, releasing funds only when conditions are met. In another circle, traders exchange one token for another through a decentralized exchange. Prices shift based on supply and demand, not from a broker, but from the flow of users themselves. Everywhere you look, baskets move, tokens flow, and agreements execute automatically. This openness is both powerful and unusual. In traditional banking, access often depends on approval. You must meet requirements, fill forms, and sometimes face rejection. In the open meadow of DeFi, access is as simple as holding a digital wallet and connecting it to the contracts. Anyone with an internet connection can join. A farmer in one country, a student in another, and a worker in a city thousands of miles away can all step into the same meadow and use the same services. The gatekeepers are gone. This freedom brings both opportunity and caution. On the one hand, DeFi gives people access who were once excluded. The unbanked, who could not open accounts, can still hold wallets and interact with contracts. On the other hand, the absence of gatekeepers means there is also less protection. If a contract has a flaw, it will execute anyway. If a scammer creates a fake project, the code will still run. The meadow is open, but openness means responsibility rests on those who walk here. The growth of DeFi has been astonishing. In a few short years, billions of dollars in value flowed into these contracts. People trusted them not only with small amounts, but with life savings, drawn by the promise of higher returns and direct control. The meadow grew dense with activity, each new project like a wildflower appearing overnight. Some blossoms were bright and beautiful, others wilted quickly, leaving behind cautionary tales. This mix of beauty and fragility is part of the meadow's character. You sit quietly in the grass, listening to the sounds of the meadow. The hum of code echoes like insects in the air. The rustle of contracts opening and closing feels like leaves shifting in the wind. It is peaceful, yet unpredictable. At times, storms sweep through, hacks strike, draining millions from projects overnight. Rug pulls, where creators abandon a project and take the funds, leave people in shock. These events remind you that while the meadow is open, it is not always safe. It demands awareness, care, and wisdom. Still, the meadow continues to grow. People are drawn to its openness because it offers something they have never had. It allows them to control their funds without permission. It gives them tools to earn interest, trade assets, and borrow against holdings without needing a banker to approve their request. For many, this is empowerment. It is a reminder that finance does not have to be closed. It can be a space where people connect directly through shared trust and code. As you rest longer, you notice the balance between risk and possibility. On one side, the meadow holds freedom, choice, and creativity. On the other, it carries volatility, hacks, and loss. Both are true. Both shape the story. This duality makes DeFi both promising and fragile, like a meadow that blooms with color, but also faces sudden storms. Understanding this helps you see the landscape more clearly. It is neither utopia nor disaster. It is an experiment unfolding in real time. You think again of the oak tree and the river. Banks provide structure, stability, and insurance, even with their flaws. The river keeps money moving through lending and borrowing. The anchored lake offers stability through and now, the meadow of DeFi shows another layer: openness, peer-to-peer exchange, and direct control. Each part is different, yet each belongs in the wider forest of finance. None replaces the others completely, but each adds a new perspective. As night settles further, you find yourself calmer. You know, DeFi is not something to rush into recklessly, but understanding it softens the confusion. You can see why people gather in the meadow, why they create circles of trust, and why they believe in the power of contracts that execute themselves. Even if you never step into the meadow yourself, the knowledge brings peace. It shows you that the financial world is not fixed. It is changing, adapting, and expanding in ways that are worth noticing. The meadow whispers of what comes next. Beyond its tall grasses, clouds begin to gather in the sky. You can hear a low rumble in the distance. These are the clouds of risk, fees, and volatility. They remind you that no matter how beautiful the meadow is, storms are always possible. To walk forward, you must learn what those clouds hold and how to prepare for them. And so, with one last look at the open meadow, you take a deep breath. The next part of the journey awaits. The clouds are coming, and with them, the lessons of caution. The meadow of DeFi is still vivid in your mind. You remember the open circles of people exchanging tokens, the baskets of contracts moving between hands, and the freedom of a space without gatekeepers. Yet as you stand in the meadow, the sky above begins to shift. The blue fades into gray. Thin clouds gather slowly, spreading across the horizon. They are not storms yet, but they move restlessly, hinting at changes. These are the clouds of risk, of fees, of volatility. At first, the clouds look harmless. Small transaction costs drift in like wisps of mist. A fee here, a fee there. The kind you hardly notice when moving tokens or trading in a contract. But then, when many people rush into the meadow at once, the fees rise sharply. The air grows heavy, and the simple act of moving value becomes costly. For someone with only a small amount to exchange, the fee itself can outweigh the purpose. The cloud thickens, reminding you that even in a digital forest, nothing moves without a price. The clouds grow darker when volatility enters. Prices that once felt steady begin to sway like tall grass in the wind. One token valued highly in the morning may lose half its worth by evening. Another may double overnight. The swings are quick and often unpredictable, leaving people dizzy. This volatility is both a temptation and a threat. Some see it as an opportunity to profit, to ride the waves of sudden change. Others feel the weight of fear, unable to sleep, as their savings rise and fall with every gust of wind. The memory of Bitcoin's wild swings comes back to you. One year, it reached new heights. Another, it tumbled sharply. Even Ethereum and other tokens followed this rhythm. The meadow thrives on openness, but openness also means exposure to constant shifts. Unlike the oak tree of banks, which holds steady balances protected by insurance, the meadow cannot promise stability. To walk here is to accept that the sky can change without warning. As you observe the wandering clouds, you realize how emotional the weather of finance can be. Fear spreads quickly when clouds gather, and greed stirs when sunlight breaks through. These emotions amplify the swings, making prices climb higher in moments of hope and fall harder in moments of doubt. Traders talk of FOMO, the fear of missing out, and FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Both are born from the same clouds. Both drive people to act hastily, forgetting the calm of steady steps. In these moments, the meadow feels less like freedom and more like exposure. Without strong preparation, a sudden storm can wash away savings. Without clear understanding, a scam can lure the unsuspecting into handing over their baskets. Risk is woven into the open nature of DeFi. It cannot be removed, only respected. The clouds remind you that beauty and danger share the same sky. Still, the clouds are not only warnings, they are also teachers. They show why balance is important. They remind you why stablecoins exist, offering a still lake in the midst of turbulence. They highlight the value of traditional protections, like insurance, even if those belong to the oak tree rather than the meadow. By watching the clouds, you learn to see the whole landscape more clearly. You learn that no part of finance is without trade-offs. The clouds also reveal the importance of preparation. Those who set limits for themselves, who only invest what they can afford to lose, walk more safely beneath this shifting sky. Those who spread their holdings, keeping some in banks, some in stablecoins, and some in crypto, find shelter when storms come. Even in a meadow full of possibility, wisdom comes not from chasing every gust of wind, but from knowing when to rest under cover. You think about the times when storms struck the financial forest, exchanges collapsing overnight, projects vanishing in rug pulls, entire markets losing billions in a single week. Each event was a cloud thickening into a storm. And yet, after each storm, the meadow still remained. People returned, rebuilt, and learned from what happened. The resilience of the system is not in avoiding storms altogether, but in surviving them and adjusting for the future. As you rest with these thoughts, the clouds above seem less frightening. They are no longer only symbols of danger. They are reminders of reality. Fees exist in every system, whether in banking or in DeFi. Risks are part of any attempt to grow. Volatility comes with freedom, just as steadiness comes with control. Understanding this balance calms the mind. You do not need to fear the clouds if you know what they mean. The sky continues to shift, but you notice a beam of light breaking through the gray. It is not enough to clear the clouds completely, but it is enough to guide you forward. In the distance, you see the outline of a lighthouse, its beam cutting gently through the mist. The lighthouse reminds you that even in storms, there are signals of safety warnings of danger, and guides to help people avoid hidden rocks. This lighthouse is the next step in your journey. It is the symbol of caution in the world of crypto, the reminder to watch for scams and false promises. Because beyond the natural clouds of risk and volatility, there are those who seek to trick, to steal, and to mislead. And learning how to see their tricks is as important as learning to read the weather. So you take one more look at the wandering clouds, letting their lessons sink in. Then you turn your eyes toward the lighthouse, waiting in the distance. Its steady light calls you closer, promising clarity in the fog. And that is where we will go next, into the guiding light of caution and the truth about scams. The clouds of risk are still drifting in your thoughts. You remember their heavy gray shapes and the way they revealed both danger and lessons. You know that storms will always exist in the meadow of finance, whether in banks or in crypto. Yet, as you look ahead, the lighthouse shines in the distance. Its beam of light cuts across the mist, steady and calm. It does not remove the storms, but it helps you see the rocks hidden in the water. This is the light of caution, the reminder to watch for scams and false promises. You step closer, and the light grows stronger. The air around the lighthouse feels different. It is not restless like the clouds, but clear and focused. Here, the lesson is simple. Not every voice in the meadow speaks truth. Some appear kind, offering treasure with open hands, but their gifts are traps. Scams have always followed money. They followed the banks, they followed the markets, and now they follow crypto too. The lighthouse exists to remind you that calm awareness is the best protection. The most common scam begins with promises. You will see offers of guaranteed returns, banners claiming risk-free profits, voices saying your money will double overnight. They appear inviting, especially to those tired of struggling. But the light reveals their flaw. No real system can promise reward without risk. No honest contract will guarantee wealth without effort. These words are bait, and the moment you hand over your tokens, the hands that offered kindness close tightly and vanish. Other scams hide in the design of fake projects. A group may create a token that looks exciting, building a story around it with websites, white papers, and influencers to promote it. At first, the value rises as people rush to buy. Then, when enough money has flowed in, the creators sell everything and disappear. This is what many call a rug pull, when the ground beneath you is suddenly taken away. The lighthouse shows these patterns again and again, teaching you to pause before stepping onto ground that feels too freshly built. Phishing scams are another trick. Here, the scammer pretends to be someone trustworthy. They send emails or messages that look official, asking you to log in or confirm details. The link they provide is false, designed to capture your keys or passwords. Once you type them, they have access to your funds. The light shines here too, reminding you never to share private keys, never to trust unexpected links, and never to give away the one secret that secures your digital wallet. There are also scams that prey on loneliness. Someone may reach out online, forming a slow friendship, or even a romantic bond. Over time, they begin to mention investments or opportunities, gently urging you to join. Trust builds, and then the request comes. Send money, invest in this coin, buy into this scheme. When the victim finally realizes the friend is gone and the account is empty, these are the hardest scams to face because they wound not only the wallet but also the heart. The lighthouse does not make you afraid, it makes you aware. It reminds you that caution is not fear, but wisdom. It reminds you that you have the power to pause, to ask questions, to research before acting. It shows you that scams lose their strength when you move slowly and carefully. In a world where tokens flow quickly, patience is itself a form of protection. You think about how scams also existed long before crypto. Fake checks, pyramid schemes, false investments, and stolen identities all thrived in older systems. The presence of scams does not mean crypto itself is broken. It means that whenever value exists, there will be those who try to steal it. The lesson is not to hide forever, but to walk with the lighthouse in view. With awareness, the danger lessens, and the path becomes safer. The lighthouse also teaches balance. If you treat every new idea as a scam, you may never step forward at all. If you trust every voice without question, you may stumble into harm. Balance lies in the middle. Ask questions, look for proof, use small amounts first, trust slowly, and always keep the light within reach. The scammers thrive in darkness. They fail when people see clearly. As you stand near the lighthouse, you feel calm. The light sweeps across the waves, steady and rhythmic. You realize that scams like clouds will never disappear. But you do not need to panic. You only need to stay aware. You only need to remember the signs: guaranteed profits, rushed decisions, secret requests, or sudden pressure. These are shadows the light reveals, and once you see them, they lose their power. You breathe slowly and let the beam guide your thoughts. You see how knowledge itself is protection. Each lesson you learn, each pattern you recognize, strengthens your sense of safety. Scams prey on confusion, but clarity is their enemy. By resting in clarity, you guard not only your money, but also your peace of mind. The lighthouse reminds you that even in a storm, you can sleep soundly when you trust your awareness. As the night deepens, the light shines toward the horizon. There you see small lanterns glowing in the distance. They are not warnings, but invitations. These lanterns mark the places where crypto is already being used in daily life. They show how, beyond the scams and storms, there are real paths where people pay, save, and transfer with digital coins. They are reminders that crypto is not only theory, it is already part of human stories around the world. The thought brings a sense of hope. You have seen the clouds of risk and the light of caution. Now, you are ready to walk toward the lanterns of real use. The next step is to see how people are using crypto in their lives today, in small but meaningful ways. So you take one last look at the lighthouse, letting its steady beam settle in your heart. Then you turn toward the glow ahead, ready to follow the lanterns into the next chapter of this story. The beam of the lighthouse still lingers in your mind, steady and protective. It showed you how to see scams, how to pause, and how to recognize false promises. That clarity gave you a sense of safety, a calm reminder that knowledge is your shield. Now, as the light fades behind you, you see small lanterns glowing along the path ahead. These lanterns represent real uses of cryptocurrency. They are not warnings, but living examples of how people bring digital coins into their daily lives. You step closer to the first lantern. It belongs to someone sending money to family across borders. For many years, these payments were costly and slow. Traditional systems charged high fees and sometimes took days to deliver the money. For families, depending on these funds, the delays felt heavy. With crypto, the transfer can happen in minutes, often at a fraction of the cost. A worker in one country sends coins home, and within the hour, their family in another country has value they can use. The lantern glows brightly, showing the relief of faster, cheaper connections. The second lantern shines in a cafe where the owner accepts Bitcoin or stablecoins for payment. The sign on the counter reads, "Crypto accepted here." Customers can scan a code on their phone and the payment completes quickly. For the owner, it means fewer costs from payment processors and more flexibility. For the customer, it feels empowering to use digital money in a simple way. It is still rare in many places, but where it happens, it shows that crypto can step beyond theory into daily routine. Another lantern appears in the home of a saver. They use stablecoins as a way to protect value in a country where the local currency is unstable. Inflation makes prices rise quickly, erasing the worth of their paycheck. By holding value in digital dollars, they maintain a sense of control. The stablecoin becomes their safe lake in a storm of economic uncertainty. For them, crypto is not an experiment, it is survival. The lantern flickers gently, reminding you how real the stakes are for many. You walk further and see a lantern glowing over a student. They earn small amounts of crypto through online work, perhaps freelance tasks or digital art. For them, it is easier to be paid in crypto than to deal with complicated banking rules. Their wallet becomes their paycheck, their bank, and their gateway to opportunity. The glow reflects the new ways young people connect to a global economy, even when traditional systems feel closed or slow. The next lantern shines near a group of merchants who use Bitcoin admins. In many cities, these machines allow people to buy crypto with cash or withdraw cash from their crypto holdings. More than 30,000 such ATMs already exist in the United States. Each one is a bridge between digital value and physical currency, helping people feel that crypto is not only abstract, but also tangible. The lantern glows like a small signpost, showing how access becomes easier as more bridges appear. You notice another lantern near a traveler. They move between countries and find it difficult to use traditional banking everywhere they go. Instead, they keep a portion of their funds in crypto wallets. This allows them to move smoothly, free from the need to constantly exchange currencies or rely on banks that may not accept them. For this traveler, crypto is a passport for money, carrying value wherever they wander. The lantern lights the road beneath their feet, giving them freedom and peace. In the distance, you see a larger glow where companies gather. Some businesses now hold Bitcoin or Ethereum on their balance sheets. Others build services that accept or process crypto payments. For them, it is both an investment and a statement. They want to be part of the future they see forming. These lanterns burn brightly, attracting attention and signaling that crypto is no longer only for individuals, but also for organizations shaping tomorrow. Still, not every lantern shines without challenge. Some flicker in uncertainty. Like merchants who stop accepting crypto when fees rise too high or when regulations create confusion. Others burn out when wallets are lost or when markets swing too wildly. These stories remind you that crypto's path in daily life is not smooth. It is still young, still learning, still searching for steady ground. Yet the fact that lanterns exist at all is proof that progress is real. As you move from lantern to lantern, you feel a sense of connection. Each light represents someone using crypto for a real purpose. Each story shows how digital coins are not only about speculation or headlines, but about human needs: sending money, protecting savings, paying for goods, or finding independence. The glow of these lanterns softens the fear of the unknown. It shows you that crypto is not only an idea, but also a tool already at work in the world. You pause for a moment and think about your own path. Even if you have never used crypto, the lanterns make you feel closer to those who do. You can see their hopes, their struggles, and their small victories. The technology may be complex, but the emotions are simple. The desire for safety, speed, fairness, and control. These desires are shared across generations and across borders. They are what make the lanterns shine. As the night deepens, the lanterns stretch further into the distance. They guide you gently, showing that the story of crypto is no longer only about invention. It is also about integration. Step by step, lantern by lantern, digital money is finding places in ordinary lives. Some lights are bright, some are faint, but together they form a pathway of change. You breathe slowly, letting the glow calm you. You realize that crypto's future will not be built only in code or charts, but in these small human stories. Each lantern is a reminder that value is not abstract. It is lived, it is felt, it is used. And with each use, the idea of crypto becomes less foreign and more familiar. Beyond the lanterns, you see a softer glow rising. It is not tied to a shop or a wallet or a transfer. It comes from within, from the heart. This glow represents the emotional journey of money. The fear, the shame, the hope, and the healing that shape how people feel about finance. The lanterns show the practical uses of crypto, but the next chapter reveals the inner path, where money and emotion meet. And so, as you take one last look at the pathway of lanterns, you prepare to step into this deeper glow. The next step is not about technology, but about feelings, and how healing your relationship with money can bring peace at night. The lanterns still glow softly behind you. They showed you the many ways people use crypto in their lives, from sending money to saving wages, from paying for coffee to holding value when local currencies collapse. Each lantern was a reminder that digital money is not only theory, it is already part of daily life for many people around the world. As you follow the path onward, you notice the glow changes. It is no longer scattered lanterns in the distance, but a warm, steady light from a single place ahead. You walk closer and see a small house with smoke rising gently from the chimney. The windows glow with an orange light. Inside, a fire burns quietly in a hearth. The warmth pulls you in. You open the door and step inside. The air feels calm, the kind of calm you feel when burdens are set down at the end of the day. This is the hearth of healing, where the emotional journey of money becomes clear. Here, money is not numbers or codes. It is memory and feeling. You sit near the fire and think back to childhood. You remember when money first entered your awareness. Maybe it was the sound of coins in a jar, or a parent's worry when bills arrived in the mail. These early moments shaped your beliefs. They created whispers in your mind that stayed with you into adulthood. Some whispered scarcity, some whispered fear, some whispered silence. You realize that for many, money has been a source of shame. It might have been the shame of not having enough, or the shame of spending too much, or the shame of not understanding how the system works. These feelings weigh heavier than the numbers themselves. They shape decisions, relationships, and sleep. Sitting by the fire, you feel the weight begin to soften. You see that these feelings are not personal flaws. They are wounds carried from past experiences. The hearth reminds you that healing begins with noticing. By naming the feelings, you take away some of their power. Fear of debt, guilt over spending, embarrassment about asking questions. These emotions live in the dark when unspoken. But here, in the light of the fire, they lose their sharp edges. You see them clearly and with compassion. You see that you are not alone in carrying them. Many people share the same hidden burdens. The warmth of the hearth also teaches self-kindness. You do not need to solve every financial struggle tonight. You do not need to master every detail. Healing begins by treating yourself gently. You can say, "I did not know because no one taught me." You can say, "I made mistakes, but I am learning." You can say, "My worth is not defined by a number in my account." Each phrase is like another log added to the fire, keeping the hearth warm and steady. You think about how technology like crypto connects to this healing. On one side, it offers tools and opportunities. On the other, it can trigger fear and confusion. Both sides are true, but when approached gently, the new tools can also become part of the healing process. They can show that there are choices, that systems can be redesigned, that no one is powerless. Even if you never buy or sell a coin, the knowledge itself is empowering. It shifts the story from helplessness to awareness. The hearth glows brighter as you remember times when money felt overwhelming. Late nights worrying about bills, arguments over spending, the sting of a declined card. Each memory felt like a fire burning too hot, threatening to consume your peace. Yet sitting here now, you feel the fire differently. It is not harsh, it is steady and warm. It reminds you that even painful money memories can be reframed. They can teach resilience, patience, and empathy. They can become part of your strength rather than your shame. You breathe deeply, letting the warmth settle into your body. You see how healing is not about perfection. It is about balance. It is about finding rituals that calm your nervous system and remind you that money is only one part of life, not the measure of your entire worth. These rituals can be small, like pausing before a purchase, writing down gratitude for what you have, or setting a gentle boundary with yourself about what you can afford. Each small act adds to your sense of safety. You remember how others have found rituals too. Some set aside 5 minutes each week to review their accounts calmly, treating it like a mindful practice instead of a stressful task. Some keep a simple journal, writing down both goals and feelings about money. Others share openly with friends, breaking the silence that isolates them. These small steps do not change everything at once, but they slowly rewire the story. They turn fear into familiarity and shame into understanding. The hearth whispers another truth. Healing your money story is not only about your own peace, it also affects how you relate to others. When you soften your own shame, you create space to be more compassionate with friends, family, or partners. You see their struggles not as failures, but as human experiences. This shared empathy builds connection. It turns money from a wall that divides into a bridge that unites. As you sit longer, you realize the fire has one more lesson. Healing is ongoing. It is not a single moment, but a journey. Each chapter of your life will bring new financial challenges and emotions. But once you know how to sit by the hearth, you always have a place to return. You always have warmth to remind you that you are safe, that you are learning, and that you are allowed to rest. The fire crackles softly, and you feel yourself relax even more. The lanterns of real-world uses showed you what crypto looks like in practice. The hearth shows you how to process the emotions that come with money. Together, they remind you that financial wellness is not only external, it is also internal. It is the peace you feel in your chest, the calm you carry into sleep, the sense that you are more than numbers. In the silence, you notice a small locked box near the hearth. It sits on a shelf, waiting quietly. You sense that this box carries the next lesson. It is not about feelings alone. The box is like a wallet with a key. Inside it lies another part of the journey, one that shows you how ownership and protection shape the future of money. And so, with one last look at the glowing fire, you prepare to open the box. The next chapter will take you deeper into the meaning of security, privacy, and the responsibility of holding the key. The warmth of the hearth still rests in your body. You remember the way the fire softened shame and turned heavy memories into lighter truths. For the first time in a long time, money felt less like a wound and more like a story you could hold gently. But as you sit quietly, your eyes drift to the small locked box on the shelf. Its presence feels important. It calls you closer, as if whispering that healing is not only about feelings, but also about protection. You lift the box and place it on your lap. The surface feels cool and solid, a small keyhole gleams in the front. You sense that this box represents privacy, ownership, and security is a side of money that demands not only compassion, but also care. You take a slow breath and begin to picture what lies inside. This is where the story of wallets and keys begins. In the old world of banks, your money rested in accounts managed by others. They held the records, they set the rules, and they provided insurance if something went wrong. It was like placing your coins in the oak tree's trunk, trusting the roots to guard them. But in the world of crypto, the system shifts. Now you hold the key yourself. Your money lives in a digital wallet, and only the one with the private key can open it. This key is like the small piece of metal that now rests in your hand, the one that fits the box. The idea is simple, yet powerful. With a private key, you do not need a banker to approve your withdrawal. You do not need permission to send funds. You alone decide when to open the box and when to close it. The control is yours, and so is the responsibility. If you lose the key, the box remains shut forever. No one can make a copy. No one can reset it for you. This truth feels both empowering and heavy at the same time. You imagine the feeling of unlocking the box. Inside, your coins rest quietly, untouched, until you choose to move them. No one can enter without your consent. No government can freeze them. No institution can block your access. The sanctuary is yours alone. For many, this is the deepest appeal of crypto, the sense of sovereignty, the knowledge that you are the final guardian of your wealth. Yet, the sanctuary is not without risk. Just as the key can open the box, losing it means losing everything inside. Many stories exist of people who forgot their passwords, misplaced their keys, or threw away hard drives holding fortunes. These stories sound like cautionary tales told around a fire, reminders that freedom always carries weight. Control is beautiful, but it requires care. Security is not passive. It asks you to be mindful, to store your keys safely, and to treat them as treasures. You think again about privacy. Traditional banks know where and how you spend. Statements arrive with every detail, and accounts are linked to your name. In crypto, the blockchain records every transaction publicly, but your identity is not always attached. You are represented by addresses, long strings of numbers and letters. To some, this feels private. To others, it is a reminder that true anonymity is rare because patterns can reveal much. Still, compared to banks, the sense of privacy is greater. You are no longer constantly watched by institutions. You hold more control over what you reveal. The sanctuary also highlights responsibility. In a world without gatekeepers, the line between safety and risk is drawn by your own choices. Do you share your keys with anyone? Do you keep them written down in more than one safe place? Do you use strong protections like two-factor authentication when logging into exchanges? Each decision becomes a log on the fire of your security. The more thoughtful you are, the brighter the fire burns. You pause and notice how control and comfort can live together. At first, the idea of holding your own keys may feel stressful. It feels easier to hand that role to a bank or an institution. But over time, carrying the key becomes part of the healing journey. It shows you that you can trust yourself. It proves that you are capable of protecting your own resources. Each step you take toward understanding makes the box feel less intimidating. It becomes less a burden and more a symbol of self-reliance. The locked box teaches balance too. Not everyone needs to keep everything inside it. Many choose to spread their resources, some in banks for insurance, some in wallets for control, some in stablecoins for calm. The box reminds you that no single sanctuary is perfect. True security comes from diversity, from placing your trust in different forms so that no storm can take everything at once. As you sit with the box, you think of how it ties back to your emotions. Healing your relationship with money is not only about kindness to yourself, it is also about creating habits that keep you safe. The two are connected. When you feel safe, you feel calm. When you feel calm, you can make wise choices. When you make wise choices, your safety grows. The box is not separate from the hearth. They are both parts of the same journey. The fire in the hearth glows behind you, and the box glows before you. Together, they form a balance, one for the heart, one for the hands. Both are needed to walk forward with peace. You begin to feel a new sense of confidence. You may not know every detail of crypto, but you know the story is not only about technology. It is about trust in yourself, in your awareness, and in your ability to hold the key. The night deepens, and you close the box gently. You keep the key in your hand, knowing that responsibility and empowerment are two sides of the same coin. The sanctuary of privacy has shown you how control can bring peace when handled with care. It has reminded you that financial security is not only about wealth, but about ownership and choice. As you prepare to leave the house, you notice another gentle glow outside. It comes not from a hearth or a box, but from small routines. You see someone pouring tea, reviewing their accounts calmly, setting boundaries on their spending, and then closing their laptop with a smile. These are evening rituals, small habits that bring rest to the financial mind. The sanctuary gave you security. Now, the rituals will show you peace in practice, and so you step into the night once more, carrying the key in your pocket. The sanctuary of privacy still lingers in your mind. You remember the small locked box and the key you held in your hand. It reminded you that true control over money comes with responsibility, and that safety is not given, but created. As you step away from that house, you notice a softer light nearby. It does not shine from a hearth or a box, but from small daily actions. This light comes from evening rituals, the gentle habits that create peace around money. You walk toward the glow and see someone sitting quietly at a table. A warm cup of tea rests in their hands. A small notebook lies open beside them. Their phone is nearby, but it is set to silent. The scene is simple, yet it feels powerful. There is no rush, no stress, no noise. Only a rhythm of calm steps taken before sleep. These rituals are not about chasing wealth. They are about protecting peace. The first ritual is awareness. The person looks at their accounts, not with panic, but with calm curiosity. They do not stare for long. They glance, make note, and then close the app. The act is not about control, but about connection. It is a reminder that money is part of life, but not the whole of life. By facing the numbers regularly, the fear of the unknown begins to fade. Awareness turns shadows into shapes that can be understood. The second ritual is reflection. In the notebook, they write a few lines about how they feel. Maybe they note gratitude for having enough to cover the day's needs. Maybe they write about a moment of stress when spending felt heavier than expected. The page does not judge, it simply holds the feelings. By putting them on paper, the mind releases some of the weight. Reflection turns emotions into lessons. The third ritual is intention. Before finishing, they set a small boundary for the next day. It might be as simple as deciding not to make late-night purchases. It might be setting a limit on how much to spend on eating out. These boundaries are not strict rules. They are gentle guides, meant to protect rather than punish. Each one is like a stone placed on a path, showing where to step safely tomorrow. As you watch, you realize that these rituals are as important as the keys and codes of crypto. They are practices that calm the nervous system. They keep money from overwhelming the mind. They build resilience, not through complexity, but through repetition. Like brushing teeth or turning off the lights, these habits prepare the body and spirit for rest. They remind you that financial peace is not only about systems, but also about rhythms. Crypto fits into these rituals too. The person does not check the price of Bitcoin every hour. They set aside a moment in the day, usually before dinner, to glance at the markets if they choose. By limiting the time, they prevent the constant swings from stirring anxiety. They might decide to keep only a small percentage of their savings in crypto, treating it as an experiment rather than a foundation. This balance allows them to explore without losing sleep. They also practice safety. Their keys are written and stored in 2 safe places. Their accounts use 2-factor authentication. Their recovery phrases are offline, away from hackers' reach. These steps are not dramatic. They are quiet acts of care, much like locking the doors at night or placing valuables in a drawer. Security becomes part of the ritual, not as fear, but as reassurance. You notice how these small actions change the atmosphere of the room. Instead of money feeling like a storm or a burden, it becomes part of the evening wind-down. Each step lowers the heart rate, steadies the breath, and prepares the mind for sleep. The fire of stress is replaced by the glow of calm. The person finishes their tea, closes their notebook, and smiles softly. They have not solved every financial question, but they have ended the day with peace. You think about how many people live without these rituals. They check their accounts only when forced to. They avoid looking at balances until fear pushes them. They react to headlines and price swings instead of setting boundaries. For them, money feels like chaos, yet watching this scene reminds you that chaos can be softened. With small rituals, money becomes part of the rhythm of life instead of the enemy of sleep. The importance of rest cannot be overstated. Without rest, the mind spirals. Decisions become reactive. Fear grows. But when rest is supported by ritual, clarity emerges. The next day begins with more stability, and choices feel lighter. In this way, evening rituals are not only for sleep, they are also for tomorrow. They shape the way you face new challenges and opportunities. The glow in the room feels like a reminder. You do not need to copy every ritual you see. You only need to choose one or two that feel natural. Maybe it is checking balances calmly. Maybe it is writing feelings in a notebook. Maybe it is setting a simple boundary for tomorrow. Over time, these habits stack like stones, building a wall of peace around your financial life. The evening grows darker, and the person at the table blows out a candle. They rise, stretch, and prepare for bed. Their rituals are complete. Their mind is calm, and their body feels safe enough to rest. Watching them, you understand the deeper meaning. Money will always carry risk, complexity, and change. But the way you approach it each day can transform the experience. Rituals are how you choose peace over panic. You step back outside into the night, the stars are brighter now, and the air feels cooler. You carry with you the sense of calm that came from watching those habits. The box of privacy taught you control. The evening rituals showed you rest. Both are part of the same journey, one inward and one outward. Together, they prepare you for the final lesson. Far in the distance, you see the first signs of dawn. The sky is still dark, but the horizon glows faintly with promise. The light signals that the journey is nearing its end. Ahead lies the dawn of empowerment, the moment when all the lessons come together and the future feels open. And so, with the quiet of evening rituals still surrounding you, you walk toward that glow. The next chapter will show you how knowledge, awareness, and healing can combine into hope, into agency, and into a calm vision of what comes next. The night has been long, filled with many lessons. You have walked from the oak tree of banking to the river of money, from the spark of creativity to the anchored lake of stability. You have crossed the open meadow of DeFi, stood beneath wandering clouds of risk, and rested in the guiding light of caution. You have followed lanterns of real-world use, sat by the hearth of healing, held the box of privacy, and learned from the quiet power of evening rituals. Now, as you look ahead, you see the faint glow of dawn. The sky is soft gray, and the first light of empowerment begins to rise. This dawn does not arrive suddenly. It comes gently, with colors spreading slowly across the horizon. It reminds you that empowerment with money is the same. It is not a single moment of clarity. It is the slow accumulation of understanding, the gradual layering of habits, the steady building of confidence. Each chapter of your journey was part of this process. Each step prepared you for this final view. The dawn of empowerment begins with literacy. To be financially literate is not to know every chart or term. It is to understand the basics clearly enough to rest. You now know that banks hold deposits, but also lend them, that governments insure accounts up to certain limits, and that money itself flows like a current through the economy. You know that crypto was born after crisis, that Bitcoin became digital gold, and that Ethereum opened doors to creativity. You know the balance between freedom and risk, between stability and volatility. This literacy gives you power, not through perfection, but through awareness. Awareness leads to calm. You no longer see money as a maze of confusion. You see it as a set of systems, each with strengths and flaws. Banks offer insurance but can feel rigid. Crypto offers control but carries responsibility. Stablecoins provide calm but rely on trust in reserves. DeFi expands access but requires caution. By holding all these truths at once, you feel less overwhelmed. You realize you do not need to choose one system over the other. You can blend them, balancing tradition and innovation in a way that suits your life. As the dawn brightens, you notice how your relationship with money has shifted. Once it was tied to fear, to shame, to silence, now it feels softer. You see money as a tool rather than a measure of worth. You see that mistakes are not final but lessons. You see that healing is possible and that financial peace is not about numbers alone, but about how you carry them inside. This realization brings deep rest, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Empowerment also means giving yourself permission. Permission to set boundaries. Permission to learn at your own pace. Permission to say no to voices that promise too much. Permission to build rituals that work for you, even if they are simple. The dawn shows that empowerment is not about perfection or wealth. It is about agency, the ability to make choices that align with your values and bring you peace. You remember the oak tree again, steady and rooted. You remember the anchored lake.com and reflective. You remember the meadow of DeFi, open and full of possibility. Each image is now part of your inner forest, a set of symbols you can return to when questions arise. The forest is not perfect, but you now know how to walk through it without fear. The pathways are clearer, the shadows less threatening, the light always within reach. The birds begin to sing as the sun rises higher. Their songs remind you that you are not alone in this journey. Millions of people are also learning, struggling, healing, and hoping. Some are using crypto for the first time. Others are returning to basics, setting budgets, or building savings. All are searching for peace with money. This shared search connects you to something larger than yourself. A collective dawn of empowerment slowly spreading across generations. The light also reveals responsibility. Empowerment is not only about personal peace, it is also about how your choices ripple outward. When you share what you learn, you help others feel less lost. When you act with caution, you set an example of wisdom. When you heal your own shame, you make it easier for others to speak openly. The dawn invites you to see empowerment not only as personal, but also as communal. As you breathe in the morning air, you feel gratitude. Gratitude for the journey you have taken, for the symbols that guided you, and for the calm that now rests in your body. Gratitude even for the storms, for they taught you resilience. Gratitude for the hearth, for it reminded you that money is not only numbers, but emotions. Gratitude for the rituals, for they showed you how small habits create lasting peace. Gratitude for the dawn itself, for it shows you that every ending is also a beginning. The sun rises fully now, painting the sky in gold. You know, the journey does not end here. Money will continue to change, with banks adapting, with crypto evolving, with new tools appearing. But you no longer fear the changes. You know how to watch with curiosity, how to learn step by step, and how to rest when the noise grows too loud. You know that empowerment is not about control over the future, but about calm within the present. You smile softly as the light warms your face. The story has carried you from confusion to clarity, from fear to calm, from shame to empowerment. The lessons will remain with you, like seeds planted in your heart. They will grow slowly, watered by awareness, lit by rituals, and strengthened by community. This is the quiet power of the dawn. It does not erase the night, but it makes the night less frightening. And as the morning settles, you hear a final whisper. Tonight, you can stop proving, you can stop rushing, you can stop carrying the weight of what you did not know. You are still learning. You are still worthy. Your story with money is still being written, and it is allowed to be gentle. The sun climbs higher, and the forest glows with light. You are ready to rest now, ready to close your eyes with peace, ready to carry the calm into tomorrow. For tomorrow will bring new choices, and you are strong enough, wise enough, and kind enough to face them. The dawn of empowerment has arrived, and it is yours. The journey through the night has been long, and now the forest rests in quiet light. You have walked through oaks and rivers, through meadows and lakes, through storms and lighthouses, through lanterns and hearths. Each step has carried you closer to peace. Each symbol has given you a way to understand money, not only with your mind, but with your heart. You began in the fog of confusion, staring at numbers on a glowing screen, unsure what they meant. That fog was heavy, but curiosity opened the first door. You saw the oak tree of banking, steady yet imperfect, reminding you that deposits are promises, not boxes. You followed the river of money, watching how every dollar moves in cycles of earning, lending, and spending. You learned that money is not stillness, but flow. From there, you saw new seeds sprout. The storm of 2008 planted Bitcoin, a sapling born out of distrust in banks. That sapling grew into a mountain of digital gold, scarce and valuable. resilient yet volatile. Then you saw the lantern of Ethereum, a spark of creativity turning blockchains into platforms for contracts, apps, and dreams. After that came the anchored lake of stablecoins, holding steady value in a restless world. The meadow of DeFi showed you openness where people connect directly without gatekeepers. It was beautiful, but clouds soon drifted in fees, risks, and volatility, reminding you that freedom comes with cost. The lighthouse then appeared, steady and calm, warning you of scams and false promises. Its light helped you walk forward safely without fear. You followed lanterns into real life, where families used crypto to send money across borders, where shopkeepers accepted digital coins, where students earned online, and where savers protected wages in unstable economies. The lanterns reminded you that crypto is not only an idea, but a tool already in use. Then came the hearth of healing, where you faced the emotions tied to money shame, fear, and silence and softened them with compassion. The locked box of privacy showed you the power of holding your own keys, of being the guardian of your own wealth. It also reminded you that with control comes responsibility. The evening rituals then wrapped you in calm, showing how small habits checking accounts gently, writing feelings, setting boundaries, create peace, and prepare the body for rest. And finally, the dawn of empowerment rose, bringing all the lessons together into clarity, balance, and agency. This journey was not only about banks or crypto, it was about the deeper truth that money touches both systems and souls. It shapes economies, but it also shapes feelings. It can wound, but it can also heal. It can be confusing, but it can also become clear when seen slowly, softly, step by step. You now know that banks offer safety through insurance, but sometimes falter in trust. You know that crypto offers independence, but demands responsibility. You know that stablecoins anchor, that DeFi opens, that scams lurk, and that rituals protect peace. You know that no system is perfect, but each one carries lessons worth holding. And knowing this gives you rest. The conclusion is not that crypto will end banking tomorrow. The conclusion is that crypto has already changed how we think about banking, about money, about trust. It has shown that alternatives exist, that old structures can be questioned, and that new systems can grow. Whether you use it or not, the awareness itself brings empowerment. It reminds you that money is not fixed. It is alive, evolving, and always open to change. As you lie here now, you can let go of the noise. You do not need to chase every headline or predict every price. You do not need to solve every question tonight. You only need to remember that you have learned enough to rest. You can trust that you are capable of understanding. You can trust that you are allowed to grow slowly. You can trust that your worth has never been tied to numbers. The forest is calm. The oak tree still stands. The river still flows. The seed of Bitcoin still grows. And the lantern of Ethereum still shines. The lake of stability rests quietly, and the meadow of DeFi waves gently in the wind. The lighthouse continues to sweep across the water, and the lanterns of real use still flicker with human stories. The hearth glows warmly, the locked box waits safely, the evening rituals flow softly, and the dawn stretches across the sky. All of it belongs to you now, part of your inner landscape. Tonight, you can let yourself drift into sleep with ease. You have walked through fear, confusion, and storms, and you have reached a place of calm understanding. You do not need to hold tightly to every lesson. Your mind and body have absorbed what matters. The rest will return tomorrow in dreams, in reflections, in the small choices you make. So close your eyes now, let your breath slow, let the symbols of the journey rest in your heart like gentle companions. The oak, the river, the seed, the mountain, the lantern, the lake, the meadow, the clouds, the lighthouse, the hearth, the box, the rituals, and the dawn. Each one has spoken, and each one has given you something to carry forward. Tonight, maybe you can stop proving and simply rest. Because you are still learning, you are still worthy, and tomorrow your story with money will keep unfolding. And you, dear listener, are allowed to write it gently.